It's either way too early or it's way too late. Either way, I'm crazy. I'm doing a live stream at 3:30 in the morning Eastern time. Why? Because I want to talk college football. I have things to say, and I have viewer comments to get to, and there is so much to get done before we officially start the college football season, which for me means Power 5 teams are in play, and that's coming up Thursday night with Miami hosting UAB. Let's get to the college football briefly today. I won't go through the scores. You've got the internet. Of course, you can go through the scores. I caught quite a bit this afternoon and this evening. The early games were blowouts. Army over Middle Tennessee State, 42-0. Marshall completely annihilated Eastern Kentucky, 59-0. Then the two later games tonight were supposed to be the blowouts because we had Memphis and we also had SMU, two teams who finished in the top 25 last year from the Group of 5 in the American Conference, of course. But they struggled, and good games put up by Arkansas State and by Texas State. But SMU and Memphis still prevailed in two-score wins in those games in which they proved to be the dominant teams in the fourth quarter. But good efforts again in the nightcap with Memphis State over Arkansas State. That would be Memphis. We dropped the state a long, long time ago. And then, of course, the Texas State game against SMU with the Mustangs and Sonny Dykes winning. Sonny Dykes, a friend of the show who's been on 3 or 4 times here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Yes, we're right here to talk college football with you at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. But the reason I've struck up the live stream is not necessarily to take phone calls, although I will, but I was not anticipating anybody calling me at 3:30 in the morning. I need to answer mail. Let's get to the viewer comments that it's just difficult to get to. Difficult to get to, but we're going to get to them. I will remind you before I dive into the viewer comments that our content as of late has focused on looking at the schedules, the football power index percentage for each team in each game, the Mark Rogers TV voice of college football, probability of winning, and then my record projection for every team. So we've completed the SEC. We are in the midst of the ACC. The last video posted was just a few hours ago, Louisville. All right, let's get to some comments here because people a few weeks ago, especially when I released the Georgia video, took exception to that. The Florida video really brought a lot of criticism, and some other teams as well. Don't believe we've got anybody on the line. Oh, we've got a few people on the line. Let's see. Kyle's here. Yes, so early or so late, depending on your frame of reference. Kyle, for me, it was so late. So been up all day, worked all night. Boom, here I am. Good to see you, Kyle. David Knight, to work or to chat. To work or to chat? We're working and chatting, Dave. That's what we're doing here. Community guidelines. Watch. Yes, the nomenclatures. George. Can always count on George. So we got David here, which based on where you're located in the world, David, it doesn't surprise me, although you seem to be here just about all the time. George. This is going to be George. This has to be George. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre, man.
Oh, it's DeAndre. DeAndre, you're up at 3:30 in the morning.
Hey, man, sometimes I like that get that money, man.
How you been?
I am doing good.
DeAndre, does this mean that you're just getting up or you're just going to bed?
Just going to bed.
Just going to bed. Okay. I just got off work.
The games today? Yeah.
Did I watch the games today?
Yeah.
I was I was certainly starving for college football, so I really dove into the early games, but they were just complete annihilations, so I gave up on them. Got outside and got some fresh air. And then I was at work during the later games, although I did see quite a bit. I put them on DVR, and I got to see about half of the SMU win and the Memphis win.
SMU disappointed me.
Oh, you had some money on the line.
Yeah, they were supposed to win by 18. I think I haven't checked what I lost by, but it kind of disappointed me. But I mean, I should have known SMU. You know, I shouldn't be betting on them because their defense sucks. Mostly, I know they don't have very high defensive standards there. They're more of a throwing team.
They are.
I should have won with the under. Yeah. They gave up a lot of yards up the middle. I wish I would have bet on the East Kentucky and who did East Kentucky?
Marshall.
Yeah.
59 zip.
Yeah. I don't know what Arkansas. I don't know what Arkansas State and Memphis over was, but I know I bet none the over, but the points. I know I took those games.
So you took Arkansas State in the points?
No, I took Arkansas State. I took Memphis. I know you always tell me don't take big point spreads.
Well, I don't say that all the time. It depends on who it is. You almost.
I'm shocked. I think Army's only 3.5.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
They came about 48. Memphis, not Memphis, but Middle Tennessee usually have a good team, but
yes, they do.
Years, I mean, they got beat by Duke pretty bad.
Yeah, the Blue Raiders, and the kid that was playing quarterback for them, he was just the second quarterback in the nation with Jalen Hurts last year, and I forget what the numbers were. I think it was 3,000 passing, 1,000 rushing. They were the only two quarterbacks in the nation, but they got shut out.
Oh, yeah. I know Army holds the ball a long time, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they had a 9.5-minute drive in that game.
Right. That's why I took the 3.5, but it's all good. You win some, you lose some.
Absolutely. We're just getting started, DeAndre. And we'll have some games this weekend that you'll know more about.
Well, like I said, Arkansas, Memphis went to the Cotton Bowl last year, right?
Sure.
I got a funny one for you, Mark. Can you tell me why in 1950 Clemson didn't win the national championship, but Michigan did? No, 1948.
1948. Okay.
Yeah. Why didn't Clemson win the national championship? 1952, they should have won it.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look at it.
I don't think nobody really knows why.
Well, I'll look it over. I'm not going to do it during the football season, but next off season we'll give it a look. And I don't know how many people are going to care if I do a video on a 1950 or 52 national championship season or 1948, but I'll give it a go.
Well, Clemson fans care. It's just like when y'all won in 1944. Hey, y'all care about it, right? Y'all brag about it. I mean, I don't know how many other people care, but for some reason they crown these people back then. You know, I got a belief in this right here. Excuse me, Mark. I think in back then, because of lack of travel, lack of communication, teams that were closer to the bigger cities, I think they were more favored to win the national championship than the smaller ones. I know people might say, well, Alabama won one, but I don't think 17 won as many. Like you compare the regions, I don't think 17 won as many national championships as the northern teams. I know Georgia Tech might have a few in there, but outside of Alabama, Auburn didn't win that many, and I don't think Tennessee won that many. I think that had a lot to do with it because the bigger cities were closer to the better teams back then. What do you think?
Well, the first thing I'm going to go to is something that you bring up all the time, which is the most valid, not argument in this case, because we're still comparing apples to apples, but prior to desegregation, well, we're missing, I don't know, what are you going to say in college football? I think white and black split about 50-50 in college. Now in the NFL, it's obviously skewed toward the black athlete. What, about 70% is what I heard recently.
I think even in college now, I don't know if you count the FCS. I think it's still like 70%, Mark.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that number. I just look at teams like Wisconsin and others, and they seem to and even some really good teams. But anyway, regardless, it's just a different game, considering that half to 70% of the players that should have been playing weren't playing. So then the next thing I'm thinking about is that there's been a large population shift, blacks and whites, over the past 20 to 40 years, since about 1980, from places in the north to places in the south and out west. So back then, had the blacks been able to play, they were still living more so in the north back then than they are now. So I don't know how that all would have affected things, but yeah, I would think because newspapers were so dominant back then, television was just starting in the early 50s, and I'm sure had no coverage of college football. I think the first college football games were airing in the 50s, but they would just show a college football game, and that would be it. It would just be for actually just sitting and watching the game. You didn't receive any kind of analysis or any kind of coverage that would skew anybody's opinion. So it all came out of these newspapers, and of course, the major newspapers are in the major cities.
Right.
So I can agree with that.
Yeah, because like if you look at, like I use Pitt for example. Pitt, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Columbus is kind of close together from what I believe, right?
Sure.
So Ohio State, Pitt probably would be bigger because I'm not sure about this, but Pitt got some more national championships than Penn State, correct?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So, like, one of Joe Paul's biggest things was, like, he's out there in the middle of nowhere, and nobody's talking about his football teams, and look how many undefeated teams that he possibly had. I know they probably played Pitt a lot back then, but,
played them every year.
That's what one of his ones. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's interesting. But, that's it. I enjoyed some of the games I got to see. I don't care about the crowd. People kept talking about the crowd. I know it's unusual, but who really cares about the crowd? I know people say, well, it helps you get hype and stuff like that. The players get hype. And I say, yeah, that's true, but it's just like it brings it back to the purity of playing out in the street, in the sandlots and stuff. You didn't have a crowd. You got a big play. Your buddy typed you up. Like, let's go, man. Yeah. Show them what you can do. So
exactly. So that's a good point, DeAndre. So this entire time, I was thinking the same thing. It wasn't going to affect how much I enjoyed the game, but I also thought when you think about the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the crowd impact on the game and the excitement and all that doesn't come close to college football. College football, by far. There's just more excitement with the bands, with the crowd, with the mascots, with the cheerleaders. Everything that surrounds the game is more exciting and creates more of an atmosphere. So I was wondering what it was going to be like, and still we haven't seen the big venues. We haven't seen a Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State type atmosphere with nobody there or with only 10 or 15,000 people there. But when these players get on the field, I didn't see any lack of hitting, lack of enthusiasm, lack of hustle out there. I didn't see any difference in what we would have expected to see anyway.
Right.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I don't know what they were talking about, but I mean, I'm just gonna enjoy the season. It is what it is. I saw one thing. I think the Big 12 canceled SMU and TCU for the next week.
Yes,
because I don't think TCU has enough players to play because a lot of them caught COVID. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen. But we ain't get a chance to talk this week. I was hoping the boys get up and do something this week, but Breezy is blowing up down there. Brickard has been talking about how good he looks as a freshman down there at Clemson.
Yeah, I've seen some of that myself.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see what he does this week. The only problem that I have, offensive line play in all the country has been, there's probably maybe two that really look at offensive line play, maybe Wisconsin and maybe Michigan. Michigan is even going to more of the spread, but developing offensive linemen, it's going to be interesting to see what he does, because I don't think Clemson plays a great offensive line team until they might get UNC and maybe Notre Dame. And that defensive line is as good. I read some articles that was comparing this defensive line to the one that they had with Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins and Farrell. This defensive line, if they show up, they probably have better depth than what the defensive line that they did. Because if you look at it, even with X-Men out, you still got Foster there, who's like a 3 or 4 year starter. 3 or 4 year player. You still got Niles Petey there. Then you mixing these young boys up. And Moscow, he's a red shirt, sophomore, junior. They are loaded. And it's way more deeper than the defensive line that you saw a couple of years ago. And then the biggest difference between Dexter Lawrence and Breezy, Breezy is more of a pass rusher than Dexter Lawrence was. And that's, if you look at when Dexter Lawrence came out of high school, because he's from up here in North Carolina area, people were saying that he was going to be a top 5 pick. But because the NFL has changed from stopping the run to going, you got to play all 3 downs, Dexter Lawrence slipped. People were even shocked the Giants took him that high. So it's going to be interesting to see how good Breezy is, especially with all those players come back like Moscow and Foster. And you add Murphy to the mix, and then you got Henry. That defensive line is loaded. They're going to wear some offensive line out. That's at least 8 or 9 feet, even without X-Men. So it's kind of interesting. And Carter Hart, somebody that we ain't talked about, I think he was a top 50 player coming out of high school. And then Davis, who blew up last year, everybody was shocked about. I don't know how anybody's going to block them. You don't have to blitz. I don't know why. Mad respect to the defensive coach down there slips my mind right now, but you don't even have to blitz if you're Clemson next year. But he's getting paid millions of dollars, and I'm not the coach of defense, so he's gonna do what he do. But he doesn't even have to blitz next year. If he doesn't want to, he can just play coverage all day. He can go Tampa 2 all day, Mark.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I don't know about you. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to see it. Wake Forest doesn't really produce great offensive linemen like that, but Jesus Christ, it's going to be great next year, man.
Well, I'm trying to think the best offensive line they're going to face this year is probably, I don't know if because the schedule's been turned topsy-turvy, I forget exactly who they play, and I don't have it in front of me. But Boston College always has a really good offensive line. They're supposed to be one of the best in the ACC. And, of course, Florida State and Miami have been a mess up front along the offensive line. That's the first team that comes to mind that is going to have a capable offensive line would be Boston College that they're going to play. And, of course, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's going to have the best.
Yeah, because I know Notre Dame usually produce some pretty good ones. It's hard to say. I don't think they play NC State this year.
No,
it's really hard to say. Yeah, so I'm looking at that. I'm looking at who can challenge and see, but even then, I mean, if all 8 of them or 9 of them come to play every day and push each other, man, that's going to be interesting because now Pittman wants to get drafted really high, so he's going to come in there full tilt. You decide dates. I mean, I was going to buy 2 all day because I don't think that nobody can block them on paper. I don't think that anybody can block them. So that's what I'm looking at as far as Clemson. Secondary, I keep hearing how good it looks. Malcolm Green is blowing up. He's a freshman, but I kind of worry about Clemson secondary. I mean, Booth has got a lot of hype. Cheryl Jones and the guy that came out a few years ago, but you haven't seen you guys produce. I know I can't think of his name right now. The one from he had an interception against Syracuse, the one that came out maybe 2 years ago. Goodrich, that's man. Everybody talking about how good he looks, but you really didn't get to see these guys because the system that Venables plays, he likes to keep the same corners in and play a lot of safeties and rotate the defensive line, but that's because they have Simmons and he can play anywhere on the field. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens with Clemson this year on that defense. But I really don't see anybody challenging them until the playoffs. If the playoffs happen, I saw some predictions: Clemson and Cincinnati on one side, then noted Alabama and Oklahoma on the other side. I said that would be interesting.
You did say Cincinnati. You said Cincinnati, right, DeAndre?
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati in the playoff.
I didn't pick that.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. The problem is that there are people out there that think without the Pac-12 and the Big Ten that opens up an opportunity for the Group of 5, and I understand that line of thinking off the top. But then, if you really think about it, all the Group of 5 conferences and all the teams have been given their opportunities to show themselves against the Power 5 teams. They've been deprived of those. All those games have been taken away from them. So they don't have that game. So Cincinnati's going to have to go undefeated. And I just don't see a scenario in which there's not going to be a second-place team, especially in the SEC, that's not going to be better respected than Cincinnati. I don't see how that's going to happen. They're going to have to lose 3 games. There's going to have to be everybody's going to have 3 losses in the other conferences. I just don't see it.
The way the schedule sets up, Mark, it might happen.
Well, it's a good point that you make because obviously the ACC and especially the SEC have really made it difficult on their teams to get through because of all the conference games. And when you're playing 10 SEC games and nobody else, and people are jumping on me for picking, for example, Florida to go 7-3, and I said, well, basically, if you look at their typical schedule, they got 3 gimmies outside of conference where they're playing FCS and low Group of 5s. They're not going to have those games anymore. So their 7-3 is really like a 9-3, or really their 7-3 is almost like a 10-2. Because they've got these additional SEC games that they wouldn't have had to play.
Right.
Florida wasn't going to have to play Texas A&M.
Right. Let me ask you this question before I let you go. What do you think about Georgia's situation in the Southeast Conference on the East? Like, as far as the quarterback with Jamie Newman. I honestly, And people, on my YouTube channel, people got kind of upset on me.
Yeah.
I'm not calling Kirby Smart a racist, but I don't think he likes black athletic quarterbacks. Not because he doesn't like black people. It's because he doesn't like that type of style of player. I think he likes somebody that sits in the pocket. He doesn't like somebody that makes mistakes like Fromm, because they got rid of Jason Eason because of Fort Fromm, and they wanted Fields not to start. They didn't change the offense for Fields, and Fields is obviously way better than Fromm was. So I just don't think that he likes that type of quarterback.
Well, I'm going to say this, DeAndre. So unless I see definitive evidence of people's incentive of I'm not going to make any kind of declarative statement on judging somebody's thought process when it comes to, or what's in their heart. I'm just not going to make that call unless I just think it's overwhelmingly a certain way. But the one thing I'll say against that, though, is I understand that he's made two decisions where he took a pocket passer, a white pocket passer, and elevated him above a dynamic black quarterback, dual threat quarterback. But why did he make the decision to take in a transfer like Jamie Newman? Why did he recruit and sign a Justin Fields?
Yeah, but I understand, Mark. I wasn't calling him a racist. I'm just saying the style of play. I don't think.
Oh, the style of play. Oh, the style of play.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not calling him a racist. I'm just saying because of the style of play. I don't think he likes that. That's all we're trying to get you to understand. I wasn't calling him a racist. I was saying because of the style of play, he doesn't really like that type of play. I mean, it's obvious that, that's what I'm saying. Just like I tell people about Dabo, we don't know Dabo outside of what we see on TV. And I always point to the OJ situation. I never knew OJ was like the way he was until you saw him on TV. So I was just wondering.
Well, the one thing
I was wondering what you thought about that.
Well, the one thing I'll say about that is coaches by nature tend to be conservative, and they tend to go with what they know, and they tend to go with what has been proven in the past. So even if there's a Justin Fields who he sees firing lasers that you can hear whistle through the air, he knows that Jake Fromm has delivered an SEC championship, gotten them to a Rose Bowl win within a whisker of a national championship. So he knows what he's got with Jake Fromm when the bullets are flying. You can see all the talent on the field with Justin Fields in practice and in isolated game situations, but you don't know until he actually pulled it off at Ohio State how he's going to respond against SEC defenses when it really matters. And Jake Fromm's going to be an NFL quarterback. Now, whether he's going to succeed or not, that remains to be seen. But I think a similar situation happened at Ohio State with Urban Meyer, where he had Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow sitting on the bench, and he had J.T. Barrett quarterbacking his team, which seems ridiculous now, but he trusted him.
Right. Yeah, I don't. My whole thing about Joe Burrow, and I'm not wishing anything bad on the kid, but I mean, I think a lot of times these NFL people get it wrong when it comes to quarterback at that high.
Sure.
Like I don't think Hurts. Yeah.
Well, regardless of what Burrow does at the next level, my point is still that he turned in maybe the best season in the history of college football with the right receivers and the right offense. And he could have done the same thing at Ohio State.
Yeah, but you see, before Chase decided to quit, and I know it was in what you call pass, the quarterback down there is doing the same thing against Stingley that Chase was doing against AJ Terrell, who turned out to be one of the top picks. So it's interesting, but we'll see. Because a lot of times when you don't have that type of talent around you, you turn out to be a little bit different than what you was. But we'll see. And I'll let some other people call in. Mark, I'll be listening. I'll be up for a few minutes.
Appreciate that, DeAndre. Have a good night. So this is the morning for most people. This is the night for me. So I'm going to be going to bed here at some point, but we'll stay on for a while. I figured this was going to happen, and this is actually a good thing that people are calling. People are talking in the live chat. I actually came on to do a live stream thinking nobody's going to be watching, and I'm going to address viewer comments. And instead of recording that, I'll just do it live. So it just goes straight to air, and it's there, and it's posted, and it's done. And I'll just go through the viewer comments because it's been a long time since I've been able to address viewer comments. And to answer DeAndre's question about Pitt's national championships, there are 9 here, but 8 of them were prior to 1937. So those have to be looked at with some scrutiny because you had like 25 different services declaring national championships, and everybody's running around calling themselves the national champion. And then, of course, they had the 1976 Sugar Bowl win with Tony Dorsett as the Heisman Trophy winner over Georgia with Johnny Majors on the sideline. Rest in peace, Johnny Majors just passed away a few weeks ago. So if I missed some questions in here, people are talking about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. I don't see any way that the Pac-12 comes back and plays football this fall. They have canceled all their fall sports. They don't have the testing in place to deal with it. They have not. There was just a decision made today by the University of Utah to give a furlough to head coach Kyle Whittingham, their athletic director as well. So Kyle Whittingham's making a ton of money. It's not going to hurt him necessarily, and I'm sure he's going to stay connected to his team and do all the right things, and he's truly not going to take a vacation and just say, screw you, I'm on furlough, I'm not working, bye. I'm sure he's still going to stay connected to his team and communicate with them, and still it means that they've suspended practice, basically, and he's going to be off campus. And I'm sure he wasn't on campus anyway if they've not been practicing. But that just gives you an idea that the University of Utah would not be going to those measures because they're going to be in communication with the Pac-12 office to know, where do we stand with this? Have we found out any other information that is going to cause us to change course? So the Pac-12 is not playing football. I can't imagine a scenario in which the Pac-12 is going to play football. They've made their decisions, and nobody is confronting that decision. You don't see the students uprising, the parents, the players, the coaches. You just don't see it in the Pac-12. We see it in the Big 10, and we're going to see the result of whether this is going to be enough to sway the Big Ten office. So we saw a handful of college football games being played today. No issues. Everybody was able to make it to the field. We saw somewhat appeared to be alarming news initially coming out of Knoxville at the University of Tennessee with 44 players unable to practice. But Jeremy Pruitt clarified that as being 7 or 8 players testing positive, and the rest of the players either just being injured, football-related physical injuries, or that in making the connections and the tracing between the players that tested positive and other players, they didn't want to expose anyone else. So there are not 44 players that tested positive. Those were the initial results and reports that I saw. Then it was clarified when Jeremy Pruitt stated that only 7 or 8 players tested positive, that there are 44 players connected to those other players that they wanted to stay separate and not impact anyone else potentially. Greg, this is the first time I've seen your handle here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, just turning in tuning in today. You know what? I'm going to take a mulligan on my any missteps I take with my words today because I've been up for about really not that long. I got up at 9 o'clock this morning, so it's 4 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, that would be tuning. So between the contacts being blurred and the voice or the mouth not necessarily working, just tuning in today has been awful. Memphis, Arkansas State was a decent game. Texas State was threatening or interesting, but as a Husker fan, I'm trying to not lose hope. Yes, do not lose hope. The one bit of news that I heard yesterday that I just thought was ridiculous and made me pessimistic about the Big Ten playing was that the university presidents had said that they have no plans to meet in the near future. Okay, this is just ridiculous with the other three conferences ready to play, and now we see all these group of 5 teams playing, and sure, we've seen a few issues. Tennessee's not on the field practicing. TCU SMU had to be canceled because of TCU testing positive with too many players. So yes, there are going to be some bumps in the road, but the Big Ten has to make a good call here, and they can somewhat save face by saying we've got new information. The president has promised some government help with testing, expediency. They can save face to a certain extent. They just need to make the right call and say, we have plenty of time to catch up with the other conferences. We can send everybody to practice. Jim Harbaugh made the comment that his team only needs 2 weeks to prepare. And that's for a Big Ten game. So October 10th is still being talked about. It's still out there. Yes, Nebraska. Of course, Joe Burrow wanted to go to Nebraska. That where he has legacy in his family playing at Nebraska. Wow. Murder Blaze, this is all the time. This is all the time. I typically stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning. It's part of my work schedule. All right. I had intended to get to these viewer comments. And if anybody wants to call me, you can. 860-325-3687. 860-325-3687. So what do we got here? Oh, my goodness. I should have my contacts out and my glasses in. Richie is telling us that Miami's going to run up the score against UAB and dominate. Matthew Smith is telling us 7-4, not because the Cards, meaning Louisville. So Matthew Smith is saying 7-4 for Louisville because the conference, the ACC, will be better. But keep in mind that Louisville misses Clemson. And I believe they missed North Carolina. I know they missed Clemson. Pedro, great show. Thank you, Pedro. Sean Rounds, the Power Index thinks we're trash. Yes, it does. Matthew Owen, Cam is major asset to the channel. Yes, he is. Cam Underwood, State of the U. Miami Hurricane in only 2 weeks. This prediction meaning me selecting Louisville over Miami, which of course can change at game time for my specific game prediction. But in forecasting the season, yes, I predicted the Cardinals to beat the Canes. Will be wrong, according to 904 Hurricane. W.T. Keaton, I wish the SEC had allowed that 11th game so Kentucky could play Louisville. That would have been a really good game this year, actually. because I've heard somebody's out there crazy has selected Kentucky to go to the SEC championship game. Dennis White, I have Miami. I have Louisville. Man, yeah, maybe it is too late. I have Louisville beating Miami also because Miami never plays at their best and always loses. A lot of caps, a lot of exclamation marks there on the road against good teams. David Knight, I like Louisville's chances. I wish they could play Michigan. Michigan, Louisville. Mark Thibodeau, always in your corner, Rogers. Go blue. Mark Thibodeau, my favorite Michigan fan. I'm going to put him on the same line as Pinheiro 5 Piru. I can't make a selection there. Too close to call. I don't want to put myself in that position. Pinheiro 5 Piru and Mark Thibodeau. Michigan fan number one, both of them. 1 and 1A. Don't hate. We are pretty far apart on this team. I think 8-3 with losses to Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. He's talking about Pitt. Pitt's going to go 8-3. It is time for Pat Narduzzi to show he can be a head coach, and I think he will. Okay. SEC dog, Mark Rogers, when will we get the official Ohio State schedule and predictions? Oh, my bad. Yeah. Phil, FSU's defense will win the game. I guess he's talking about against Louisville. Okay. Phil, confident that Florida State will beat Louisville. Don't hate. I always want Syracuse to be great, but it doesn't happen. This year will be no different. 5-6 with their tough schedule. Syracuse, I don't think is going 5-6. Don't hate. This guy, Don't Hate, is chiming in here quite a bit. Don't hate. You're listening to me right now. Would love to know who you root for, how long you've been watching this channel here. He likes Louisville this year more than most. 8-3 with losses to Pitt, Notre Dame, and Virginia. All right. This is really boring because I'm not getting any of the good comments. The comments where people are blasting me, making fun of me. That's what I wanted to get to. I don't see them here. They are definitely there. They're probably buried at this point. Because what happens is I see comments where people are making themselves look like fools and they're trashing me, which is fine. It's funny. And then I think, okay, I got to respond to these comments. I got to get to these comments. And then by the time I do, they're buried like thousands of comments deep. I know that ACC Grit, are you still on here, ACC Grit? That you had a comment about betting. You were challenging my betting statistics. Where in the world do I have? If I could find. Come on, ACC Grit. Where's that comment about betting? I want to find that. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time is predicting the Panthers to go 9-2. Mark Thibodeau says NC State 2-9. Oh man, ACC Grit. Let's do this. And if anybody wants to call, I can look at these comments while I talk to somebody on the phone. 860-325-3687. Who else is in here? We got Jay on the line. Good to see you. Greg, good to see you. Cheryl, of course. ACC Grit, there you are. He wants to see Utah and BYU in the Big 12. My revised Big 12 does have BYU in the Big 12. Yes, I believe, or the Pac-12. Watch the video. I don't remember. David, somebody was calling Army. I was watching a YouTuber today for a couple minutes, and they were calling Army boring. I think it's exciting. I think it's interesting to watch a triple option offense. The triple option attack, I think, is interesting. Now, if everybody in the country was running it, then I would think it was boring because they run the ball. Army, here's your stat of the day, 86% of the time last year. But I like variety. And this is what annoys me about college football today, is that other than the service academies and what was Georgia Tech under Paul Johnson, everybody runs it's not exciting to me anymore when everybody looks exactly the same. Everybody's got four wides. Everybody's got the quarterback in the shotgun. They're running the read option. You see the same. It looks the same. The running plays look the same with the quarterbacks got the ball in the belly of the back and he's reading the end and he makes his decision. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's doing the same thing. It's boring. It was exciting when a few teams started to do that, when it was Texas Tech and Washington State and teams in the Mountain West. When those teams were doing it, and you would see, oh, wow, they're going to throw the ball 68 times, and they're running this read option. And I understand that everybody's a copycat and why you do it, because it's effective. And if you can make the quarterback basically a blocker, or where the quarterback in a traditional running game obviously hands the ball to the running back and he doesn't block. You're not making the quarterback a blocker, but he's got to be accounted for. So you're creating a man advantage on offense. So it makes total sense. It's just boring as hell. I hate everybody running the same offense. So my argument is that Army's not boring. Army, Navy, and Air Force are fun to watch. It's different. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave. What's going on? I'm doing just fine.
Hey, the only reason I was going to let you do your thing and keep rolling, but there was a question I had to you. We're talking about the triple option, right?
I'm really not rolling, if you've noticed, Dave. I'm really not rolling, so I'll take your phone call, of course. Triple option, yes. We're talking triple option football.
Let me ask you something. How effective do you think that would be if some of the teams, to say, don't run that on a regular basis, but practice it and pulled it out in certain critical scenarios?
So until you got to that last point, I was going to say very effective, and this is why. Look at Georgia Tech under Paul Johnson. I think we tend to forget, because he finished off not well, that Paul Johnson was highly successful at Georgia Tech. He won an Orange Bowl. He went to 2 Orange Bowls, went to multiple ACC championship games, and his recruiting classes were awful. By the measurement of the rankings, were awful, like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, worst in the ACC typically, along with Boston College and Syracuse. But they were so effective running that thing, and they passed less than anybody in the country except for the service academies. But when they did pass it, it was effective because they didn't complete a lot of passes. So your typical Georgia Tech passing line was 4 for 9 for like 102 yards because they were throwing the ball downfield for big yardage when they did pass, and it was extremely effective. They were winning their 8 and 9 games a year for most of the time Paul Johnson was there in the Power 5.
You know, one of the things I was thinking, Mark, let's talk about your team, okay? What if Ohio State's playing a big game, you know, whether it's in the CFP or not, and they're in a goal line scenario, and they come out with an option attack, which whomever they're playing, they're going to be like, well, we never even saw this on tape, right? These guys never used it. And, I mean, because typically Ohio State's got what I would call some mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And if you don't practice against it and you pull it out, it's tough to stop.
So I'm going to finish up my previous point to say, here's the issue. is that it's effective because nobody sees it and they've got to practice that 1 week for it. But the problem is recruiting the players to come and play it. So you're saying we could still get the elite players because we're going to run a normal offense. So they're not going to be shied away. You know, your potential NFL wide receiver is not going to say, well, I'm not going to Ohio State because they're going to throw the ball 6 times a game. They're still going to run their normal offense. But in key situations, they're going to practice it and pull it out to surprise teams. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
That's a good thought, except coaches, and I think of Vince Lombardi when I think of this, are adamant about repetition and being good or excellent at fewer things than being marginal at a lot of things. And that you really have to run that thing over and over and over and over and over and over to be excellent at running that. It's just so different than, especially for the offensive lineman, it's just such a different style with all the cut blocks and the movement and the pulling and everything that's involved. I think it would be difficult for them to adjust.
Gotcha. I just think, man, it would be really handy to have that in your arsenal.
Oh, absolutely.
In key moments.
You're
right. The practice you have to put to it's extensive.
I'm amazed, and I'll bring one game up that comes to mind. Navy played Virginia in a bowl game a couple of years ago, and they annihilated them. I think it was 42-7. And Virginia must have had 4 or 5 NFL players on its defense, guys that are playing right now in the NFL, playing well, starting, and they couldn't stop it. And you wonder, there's no threat of a pass, so you think, how can they not stop this? But they can't. It's amazing.
It's nice timing.
It is. Whoever developed it developed a certain system in which there are, again, it's triple option. You've got 3 options. And if the quarterback's that effective at reading the defense and reading his keys in sequence, then he's going, boom, fullback. Okay, I'll give it to the fullback because I'm reading this end and he's not crashing down. Or, boom, pull it out of the fullback's belly. I'm going to take it down the line and watch for this defensive end to see if he's going to crash. And I'm going to cut it inside of him, or boom, I'm ready to pitch that thing to the outside.
Yeah, and the defenses have to be really disciplined to play against that type of offense. And if they don't stay on their assignments, the other thing is if you're not accustomed to playing against it, you don't know what your assignment really is, right? So I remember when Navy played Ohio State, was it like 8 or 9 years ago?
Yeah.
They gave you guys kind of
absolutely.
Game, at least for the first half, maybe part of the third quarter, and you guys kind of pulled away from. But I watched that. It was a tussle for a while.
Well, you know what? So they played the year that Ohio State won the national championship. They played the first week of the season right after Braxton Miller got hurt, and J.T. Barrett was the starting quarterback. Nobody knew who he was, and it was his first start. And Ohio State won that game. I'm almost positive the score was 34-17. So, yeah, it was a pretty close game. Ohio State pulled away. But they also played in 2009, and this was a top 5 Ohio State team that won the Rose Bowl that year, finished in the top 5 in the country. Navy scored with seconds left in the game to make it 31-29 and went for a 2-point conversion that would have tied the game. But Ohio State stopped the 2-point conversion, actually ran it all the way back for 2 points that ended the game. But Navy could have won against the top 5 Ohio State team in Columbus.
Yeah, that is a difficult offense to stop. And especially, when you talk about the scout teams being able to emulate that, what about your scout players who never play that type of offense either? So it's tough to pull that off for your scout team to say, okay, well, we're going to do the best we can for our first stringers to show them a true option attack. But if they don't run it all the time, how are they supposed to pull it off well? So it presents a lot of levels of difficulty for the team to practice against it.
Absolutely. Army had a 9.5-minute drive today against Middle Tennessee, and it reminded me of a game that they played in Columbus against Ohio State, and they got obliterated 38-7. But their one scoring drive, Dave, took the entire third quarter. They chewed up the entire third quarter on a 99-yard drive and scored.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Todd B is in the side chat. He had brought that up earlier. And that's kind of what Cheryl initially had it saying, hey, good job, Army. And that's why I come in. I do like to watch Army play. I like Navy. I like Air Force. Even Army took Oklahoma a couple times to the wire.
Overtime 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a tough offense to stop. And I know Oklahoma's not known for their defense, but, whatever. But that was my only question. You got me up right now. Tommy Frazier, Turner Gill, those guys, man, they were tough to stop.
I am fascinated with the service academies. I am fascinated with them. I root for them. I am just for everything else that is on the plate of each one of those young men that is more important. That is more important in their life and should be than playing football. For them to be able to take that and then also still excel at football and compete at the highest level. And sure, they take their knocks and they get run out of the house once in a while by a big-time team, but they generally compete and play hard, and just the execution is just phenomenal. And for them to compete at that level is just, it astounds me.
To be a soldier, go to class, to play football, you got 3 jobs, kind of like you do right now. But so, do you remember Johnny Rogers?
Oh, well, I don't remember. I'm not old enough to have watched him play, but I know exactly who he is and have watched the highlights. He won the Heisman in 71, 72, 72, 72.
Yeah, it was in the early 70s. I was just getting a grasp of football then to really kind of understand it. But man, that guy was dynamic. Dale Sayers type, Reggie Bush type. Whatever. I'm going to get off, so somebody else, if they want to call in, they can call in, or if you want to keep going through what you were doing. Sorry to keep blubbering. My bad.
Oh, not at all, Dave. I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for the call.
Hey, and thanks for doing this tonight. I actually was up working, and
oh my goodness,
I'll work later.
Well, no, I want you to get back to work.
Take care of yourself, brother.
I'm just up here rambling and doing whatever. So. Thank you so much.
I'm 24/7, and that's getting ready to come to an end when I go to Dubai. So, anyway, thank you, sir, and you have a good night, and I'll keep watching.
Same to you, Dave. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
No way Kentucky goes to the SEC championship. So, Murder Blaze, one aspect of that really hurt me is that when the SEC revised the schedule, that they added Alabama to Kentucky's schedule. That's basically an automatic loss on the road. Hated to see that, but still, we shall see. We shall see. Big Ten in September. No, Todd, can't happen. So we're sitting here September 5th going into September 6th. Nothing's been decided. That's not going to happen. They're going to give these kids 5 weeks. So again, October 10th even is pushing it. We've heard the rumor October 10th. But that means they would have to get their acts together, meet, decide, announce it, get everybody pulled back together, and we can make October 10th happen if it happens in regards to a decision in the next few days. The plan that I put out there, and this is when Thanksgiving weekend was being talked about, which is completely insane, ridiculous, and stupid of the Big Ten to even consider in any way. You guys have probably heard me outline why it's so dumb. But we were doing our Ohio State show last week. Thanksgiving weekend was coming out. While we were recording the show and going live, that's when the rumor hit the internet that the Big Ten was considering, based on reliable sources, big-time sources, contemplating Thanksgiving weekend to be the opener for the Big Ten. It took me all of 30 seconds to look at a calendar and say the Big Ten could start on October 24th. They could play 10 games in 12 weeks, give their teams 2 bye weeks, play 12 weeks starting October 24th, 10 games in 12 weeks, and be ready to have its champion participate in the college football playoff. How tough is that? Took like 30 seconds of work. Just take your schedule you already built, start at October 24th, you're ready to go. Now, if you could get it going October 17th, that's even better, because then you can respond to cancellations, or October 10th. And certainly, again, I think that they would have to start here in the next several days and get the announcement made and the players back on campus. Although I know Ohio State's practicing, I know Michigan State's practicing, Nebraska's practicing. I don't know about other teams, but although Michigan State, they had to suspend here. They were practicing. They had to take off a few days. Christopher asking, how do you feel about Jamie Newman reportedly sitting out and their chances for an SEC championship? Well, I think that based on what I've observed, that Jamie Newman right now is a slightly better quarterback than JT Daniels. Now, JT Daniels was more highly touted and affirmed coming out of high school as a 5-star quarterback. To JT Daniels' credit and to his defense, he played that freshman season on a 5-7 USC team. And were they 5-7 because of him? Well, partially. He didn't play that well. He played okay. He played like a 7th or 8th best quarterback in the Pac-12 is what he played like. But he was a true freshman, and he was not able to participate in spring practice and still got himself ready, graduating from high school early to win the job at USC and play game 1. So he could just improve by leaps and bounds, especially in that Todd Monken offense. Jamie Newman, the curious aspect of Jamie Newman is that I can't think of the Wake Forest quarterback who replaced John Wolford. John Wolford, I'm getting him mixed up with the ACC commissioner, John Swofford. John Wolford was the Wake Forest quarterback who I really liked. I really had a huge senior season, which would have been in 2017. And then Sam Gartman won the job over Jamie Newman to start 2018. Gartman faltered. He got injured. Some combination of the two. Jamie Newman took over a Thursday night game against NC State. NC State had Ryan Finley, a quarterback, was ranked in the top 15 in the nation, although they weren't that good. But at the time of the season, like 7 games in, Jamie Newman's facing Ryan Finley and North Carolina State on the road on a Thursday night national TV game. Jamie Newman plays extremely well, leads a fourth quarter comeback, final drive touchdown to upset North Carolina State on the road. And then Jamie Newman proceeds to win a bowl game against Memphis with a last-minute touchdown. Also had another late game touchdown to defeat another opponent. So the stats were good. They weren't great, but Jamie Newman came through against 3 good defenses in the final minute of play in 2018 to win ball games. What's curious about Jamie Newman's 2018 stats and performance, I'll emphasize performance more than stats, was that in 2019 he had better stats, but they were compiled against inferior opponents. And in crunch time against big opponents, in games that Wake Forest could have won, he faltered. His stat line off the top of my head, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks, 62% completion percentage last year. When you talk about splitting statistics, if you're not aware of the term comes from measuring a player against different opponents or in different situations. So for a baseball player, home games, road games, against all the opponents in the league, against starting pitchers, relief pitchers, right-handed pitchers, left-handed pitchers, in April, in May, in June, in July, and August. So for a quarterback, the splits for Jamie Newman against different opponents and measured up against different styles of defenses and measured up in different quarters did not favor him in the fourth quarter last year, did not favor him against better defenses. Now, obviously, quarterback statistics are going to be worse against the better defenses, and that even goes for the better quarterbacks because it only makes sense. You're going to carve up the bad defenses and not play as well against the good defenses. But Jamie Newman was awful against better defenses, and he didn't see many in the ACC. He saw Clemson. Now, the disclaimer there is that the rest of the teams around him is overmatched as well, so that's not fair to him to rate his performance against Clemson because the entire team is going to be overmatched on offense, and especially the offensive line against Clemson's defensive line. But he didn't play well against the better defenses, so I was looking forward to seeing Jamie Newman play against the SEC defenses. But JT Daniels, Jamie Newman, I think it's a bit of a toss-up. They're different style quarterbacks. JT Daniels is not a running threat. He's not a statue, but he's not a running threat that Jamie Newman is. And I'm not going to verify this for sure because it's been a year and a half since I've seen JT Daniels play, but I don't believe he's as physically big, strong, tall, all that as Jamie Newman. Again, don't quote me on that entirely. I'm just going off memory. So I believe, Christopher, that Georgia's in an odd position in that they may have the deepest, most talented quarterback room in the country, especially before Newman left. Of course, Newman, Daniels, Mathis, Bennett, or Beck, Stetson, the whole deal. But they're all inexperienced. And now they're really suffering from inexperience with one player in JT Daniels who has 1 year experience at USC. So if DeAndre is correct, and he probably is, and me as well in regards to Kirby Smart, he knows he's got a great defense. He's got talented players, skill position players on offense, that he's going to go with the surest thing. And the surest thing is the guy that's played 10 or 11 games in the Pac-12. All right. You know, Stone Cold Sassafras Squatch, I tend to side with you. People have asked me, Mark, why don't you produce videos where you give us the best case scenario for every team and the worst case scenario for every team? And my response has always been, okay, I'm going to give you a blanket statement that covers every video I can produce. Ohio State, best case scenario, 12-0. Worst case scenario, 0-12. Rutgers, best case scenario, 12-0. Worst case scenario, 0-12. Now, that's obviously a joke. I'm taking that to an extreme. But the point I'm making is that I see these best case, worst case scenarios, like the range of games that any team could win in the country, and it's ridiculous. Basically, you're being a predictor, but you're covering your backside with some ridiculous range. Michigan State, the worst they could do is 4-8. The best they could do is 10-2. I see predictions like that, and I'm like, that's That's not a prediction. It's Michigan State. They're not going to lose to a bunch of FCS and group of 5 teams out of conference or the very drag bottom feeders in the Big Ten. They're going to win at least 2 games in the Big Ten. And then they could kind of win some close games and exceed expectations and win 8 or 9 games. Big deal. What are you telling us? You're not telling us anything. You've wasted 5 or 10 minutes telling us basically that Michigan State can go anywhere from 4-8 to 10-2. That's not telling us anything. So I stay away from those best case, worst case scenarios. And I typically make fun of anyone who brings that up. Not that there aren't some capable people out there doing that, because not everybody agrees with my approach. But I just think it's silly. ACC Grid, are you talking about breaking it into tiers? You're talking about the betting business. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. ACC Grid, are you still with us? If you are, I'm going to go get last year's results, and we'll break it into tiers for you. Let me make sure I write down the result of every college football game all season. I do this every year because I make a prediction, and then I keep my predictions. Therefore, I've got every game written down. Shoot. Where's that other stuff? You guys are getting the live raw cut version of MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Here we go. All right. If I can read this stuff, I should take out my contacts and put my glasses on. That's what I should do, because whoo, blurry. Yeah. Yeah, ACC Grit, you still with us? He's probably not even here, and this is for him. Yeah, we'll do this some other time. So I've got, like week 1, 2019. It's actually 2018. Wow, 2 years ago. Goodness gracious. And that's like every game for week 1. And basically, I've got my winner and loser and the point spread, and whether I got it right against the spread and also against the money line. So basically, what ACC Grit, he was jumping on my comment that I've made a number of times during these prediction videos, that people are, I don't understand the criticism when I pick some upsets. There are going to be some upsets. And sure, you can say I'm crazy, and that team's never going to beat that team. I get it. It's all in good fun. I have no issue with that. But to say that there aren't going to be any upsets, number one, why am I shooting videos? We all know who the favorites are going to be in the games, at least as it stands right now. So pick any schedule in the country, and it's easy to say, well, they're supposed to win those games. They're supposed to lose those games. Bam. And you make the safe prediction. It's a chalk prediction, and there it is. Why shoot a video? No, I'm trying to tell you where the upsets are going to happen. And it is like clockwork. I've charted the last 3 years. It's like clockwork that just about 22% of the games, both in the top 25 and the Power 5, are upsets. Now, what ACC Grit was asking was he wanted to know how large these upsets were. He was assuming that most of them were like 2-point upsets, which I don't necessarily consider an upset. If somebody's a 2-point favorite against somebody else, okay, yes, it's technically an upset, but that's basically a pick'em game. Anything inside a field goal, especially if the team that is at home is the favorite. But again, let's see, just in week 1, if I can focus my eyes on this thing, goodness gracious. Just in week 1, last year or 2018, but it's the same every year. I've done it 3 straight years. I've been doing predictions since 1982. That's another video I'm going to post. I'm going to show my prediction record. If I'm making predictions all the time, you got to hold yourself accountable and show people what your prediction record is. And I've done that in the past. I showed the whole prediction record for every year going back to 1982, and I'll do that again. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello, Mark. This is probably the most annoying Pitt Panther fan you ever had, the Dan Chronicles.
Oh, well, let's bring it on then. That's all right. That's why I'm here. I'm annoying and obnoxious to people too. Yeah.
What exactly do you have against Pitt? We'll give it to you. We're mediocre. We get lucky. But even when you guys, let's say, we'll call you guys the teams that should win. When you guys give us your best, even at our worst, you can't beat us.
Who's
let's
you
say,
and
let's
us?
even take Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, UCF. We beat North Carolina last year, and they're ranked over us. We're pissed. All of us are pissed. We deserve to be ranked. We don't think we should be ranked in the top 10, at least 25. We were hoping for that. We didn't get that.
Okay.
We beat 3 teams that are ranked above us.
Well, okay. I understand your anger, but also understand that every year is a new year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a projection toward what's going to happen this year, not necessarily. Otherwise, I've made this argument with people that think, for example, since LSU won the national championship last year, that they should be the preseason number 1. And I understand that opinion and that perspective, but if you're going to do that, then just take the previous season's final top 25 and just make it the next season's preseason top 25. If that's what you're thinking, it's exactly going to happen, and that should be our starting point, then that's fine, but just do it with everyone. Be consistent. So the top 25 from last year at the end of the season should be this season's preseason top 25.
Okay, and I agree with you, but here's our standpoint.
Okay.
Every year we get left out of the rankings, which most years deservedly so.
Absolutely.
Especially last year.
When is the last time you deserved to be ranked at the end of the season? It's been a long time.
I'm going to say, when was the year that we beat Iowa?
Oh, really? That recent? You played Iowa home and home. That was what, about 2014, 15 in that range, right?
Yeah, and we beat Iowa.
I'm going to the scores right now, sir. Who am I talking to again? I want to know who I'm talking to. Who is this again?
Chronicles.
Dave?
Dank.
Dank. Oh, Dank Chronicles. All right. I see your comments all the time. All right. Absolutely. Okay. I'm glad you called. Want to talk some Pitt football. We talk about the same teams all the time. Let's talk about Pitt here. Okay. Because when I think 7-5, 8-4, man, I think Pitt football. And I'm not making a slam on that. It's just that's been your history since like the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, ever since Johnny Majors left.
Well, Jackie Sherrill had a great run.
Oh, yeah, but we were never the same after Johnny Majors. I mean, I wasn't even born. I'm only 32.
Well, I was watching those games. I'm 20 years older than you. I was watching those games in the early 80s with Dan Marino and Jackie Sherrill, and you guys almost won a national championship in 1981. You won the Sugar Bowl.
It was a year that a lot of us felt we got kicked out of the title game. I can't remember what year that was. I wasn't born, so I don't really try to care about it too much.
Out of the title game. It might have been 1981.
Yeah.
Okay. So last year, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So let me ask you again, because I just want, now that I'm looking at the scores and the records at a site that I love. It's called Historical Football Scores. But anyway, who are the 3 teams that you beat last year that are ranked ahead of you?
There's North Carolina.
Yep.
And I'm trying. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And
Sure, I'm looking at them right now. Probably UCF, right?
UCF. They're ranked above. They're ranked too. Now UCF, I could make more of an argument for being ranked. Not North Carolina. At least we should be ranked ahead of them. Especially since, I mean, they played a weak Temple team, and I'm not saying Pitt played a weak Eastern Michigan team because they clearly didn't.
Well,
we barely got out of there.
Exactly.
But we still won.
And they buried Temple.
Won our bowl game.
They buried Temple. They killed them.
They absolutely buried Temple.
Yes.
So I feel that if North Carolina can go 7-6 and be ranked, why can't we be 8-5 and be ranked?
Because it has nothing to do with what happened the year before. It's just an estimation that people have. It's purely opinion. Nobody should be ranked ahead of anybody. Nobody's done anything yet. Nobody should be ranked. Nobody's done anything. Let me ask you this question real quick. How long have you been watching me?
I discovered you sometime early last year. I want to say April, maybe May.
Okay. So my point's going to be that every Sunday I come out with the top 25. And it's based solely on the results on the field. So I'm not saying like I think Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama, all these typical teams are great. Therefore, we're going to rank them high regardless of what they do and regardless of how bad they looked in week 1. I go by the results. So who are you guys playing in week 1?
Austin Peay.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, let's go to week 2. Who's your first ACC game against?
That would be because I haven't looked at the schedule ever since.
Yeah, I just looked at it the other day. I just cut a video, but I don't remember who it was. Was it NC State? They're early.
Yeah, even though we lost to them the last time we played them, I have Pitt beating them, not by much, but I still have them beating them. I only have our 2 losses coming to Virginia Tech and Clemson.
So
I just do not think we're going to beat. We could beat Notre Dame. We really could. I mean, the last time we played them, we have. They barely escaped.
Yeah, you only lost like what was it, like 19-16?
It wasn't even a touchdown.
19-13 or something like that.
It was 19-14.
Yeah.
I believe. So we can definitely beat Notre Dame. I'd give us more of a chance to beat Notre Dame than I would Clemson. Even though the last time Pitt did play Clemson down in Death Valley, we beat them. Even with a worse defense than what we have now. Way worse.
Okay, the last time you lost less than 5 games in a season was 2009. You went 10-3 and beat North Carolina in the Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Yeah, I remember that. I was actually in college in 2009.
2008, you went 9-4 and beat Oregon State. No, lost to Oregon State. I remember this 3-0 in the Sun Bowl. Yeah, 3-0. I think it was some kind of blizzard. But there you go. Okay, so you're upset that you're not ranked.
And like I even said at the beginning of the call, I give you that we're mediocre. We're not always consistent. We as Pitt fans even know that. We're not happy about it. We're angry that we pretty much had the number 1 sack defense in the entire college football last year, and people are still overlooking that. People are still forgetting we have the best safety in all of college football in Paris Ford. You're not going to get by him. You're not going to run him over, and you sure as hell ain't going to throw a pass past him. That's not happening. And then now we got Aaron Donald's nephew, Elliot Donald, playing for Pitt.
10.
Did you know about that?
I did not know that. Nope.
Yeah, he's since Jalen Twyman opted out for the season for Pitt, that really hurt us. But then we return our 2 defensive starters from last year who, if they would have never got hurt, we would have never knew who Jalen Twyman was. And that's Rashad Weaver and Keyshawn Camp.
Sure,
they're coming back.
Them. Yep.
So we essentially return 12 starters on defense.
Yep.
Offense, I'm more concerned about, which is why 9-2 is my best case scenario. Worst is 7-4. I just don't agree with your original 5-6 or 5-5, however you had it. I just don't.
Yeah, 5-6. Well, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, that's how I saw it. Now, I did see a glut of games that, again, this is my analysis of the ACC, is that obviously Clemson is way better than everybody else. Florida State was that team that challenged Clemson, but since 2016, they have fallen into the pack with everybody else. And even the bottom feeders in the ACC don't stay the same, unlike the rest of the conferences. You know, Vandy, Arkansas and the SEC, Rutgers and Maryland and Illinois and the Big Ten and Kansas and et cetera. In every other conference, it doesn't stay the same in the ACC. Last year it was Georgia Tech and NC State. The year before it was, you know, it's a rotated all over the place in the ACC. So I don't know who's going to be the worst teams this year. It's probably going to continue to be Syracuse and Georgia Tech, I guess. But in the middle, you've got this ridiculous glut of teams, and it's like 10 teams that are almost the same team, just within a couple games. Like everybody's within 5-7 to 7-5, which has obviously produced, as you well know, 7 consecutive different champions in the Coastal Division. So when I say,
I like it that way.
So when I say, well, it's fun. I do think it's fun, but. So understand that when I say Pitt's going to go 5-6, I look at that. I look at that schedule, and I should go run into my kitchen and grab everybody's schedules, because that's where I'm shooting those videos, and I got all that written down. When I say they could go 5-6, I also don't think it would be a stretch if they won 3 more games and went 8-3.
Now, see, that's more probable to do is 8-3. That's what a lot of Pitt Panthers fans want to see, is an 8-3 win record in the regular season, not including a bowl win like last year, but in the regular season, at least 8 wins, and then get a 9 win if they decide to do bowl games this year. Are they doing that or no?
There doesn't appear to be any bowl games. Nobody's talking about bowls. I don't think there are going to be bowl games played. Maybe the New Year's Six, but with all due respect, I'm not making predictions to please Pitt Panther fans. I'm just telling you what I think.
Well, a lot of us saw your videos. Kenny Pickett even saw your video. I mean, I literally only lived 3 doors down from him.
Kenny Pickett's on my video.
Yes, he did.
That's funny. Well, I should probably send him.
A lot of us saw your videos.
I should probably send every video that I've ever said that praising Kenny Pickett and Pitt in the past, because he probably doesn't like me right now. It's nothing personal. I'm just looking at I looked at an overview of the team, and you did a little homework.
I mean,
and
he's not
that's what I saw.
angry at you where he's gonna send a mob after you, or every one of us are gonna go on your live stream and talk bad about you. I mean, because from what I've seen, there's only been one other person, maybe 2 other people talking about Pitt, and I don't even know who the hell they are. I like that.
I have, over the last 5 years, roughly 5 years, had more trouble picking ACC games than any other conference by far.
Oh, yeah, because we're wildly inconsistent,
sure.
Like I said. I mean, there's 7 different conference winners. Division winners, whatever you want to call them.
Look at last season's results for you guys. You open up against Virginia, and obviously I'm going to give you a bunch of score results that you already know, but I'm refreshing my memory. You open up against Virginia, and of course, the season before, that was the de facto division championship game when you guys played Virginia and beat them in early November and went on to the division championship. But, of course, last year it was really close, and then they tacked down a couple scores, and they won. You played really close against a Penn State team that was one of the 7 or 8 best teams in the country eventually. That was a very close game. Remember that? You were throwing the ball close to the end zone near the end of the game?
There.
Oh, were you there? Great.
Yeah.
As you know, you beat Central Florida, a really good team. You barely beat Duke. I do remember watching the so I'm big into, I watch the big games, but if there's some fascinating games in the fourth quarter, then I'm flipping around all over the place. So I did watch the end of the Duke game, and I watched the end of the Syracuse game, in which you pulled both of those out by 1 score. So that's
and that seems to be our problem. Is every time our defense does good, our offense does bad. If our offense does good, our defense does bad. But also, we've never had the combination like how we do now of talented offensive and defensive players. It's always been the other way around. If we had a good offense, our defense was shit, and vice versa. Now we don't have that. We don't have that lack of depth at wide receiver. We definitely don't have the lack of depth at running back. We just don't have the consistency. We're not missing any linemen. The only player we lost on offense was Maurice French, and I hope he does well in Kansas City.
Yep.
And that's it. Most of the people we lost were on defense, which is only like maybe 3 people, because one of them transferred. And that was, who the hell transferred? I don't even know. I can't remember. But we just want to be looked at like everybody else. And I don't mean any disrespect to the North Carolina fans, because truth be told, I'm originally from North Carolina. We feel that we are good enough to not necessarily be up there with the Ohio States, because if you know anything about Pitt history, Ohio State gave us the worst loss in school history at 72-0. So
1995.
1995
or 96. 95, yeah.
When we play Ohio State again, we got an ass whooping coming to Ohio State. We're not letting them do that again. I cannot wait until they schedule Pitt against Ohio State. I know it's probably going to be about 50 years before it's happening, and I'm probably like 3 days on my deathbed.
You think those kids are really going to care about what happened in 1996?
Nah. I mean, the kids today, no. They don't, because they don't even remember what happened in 1996. I do.
Oh, I remember that game as well.
I mean, I was born in '89, but I was a huge Pitt Panther fan. Actually, ironically, when I met Dan Marino, because he's from Pittsburgh.
Very cool. Oh, yeah.
Basically what I'm saying is, and I'll get off here so everybody else can do whatever they want to do. We feel that when the schedule is stacked against us, and I'm pretty sure you're I hope you would, we do better when the schedule is tough. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Well, of course, you've got the classic 2016 win at Clemson, 43-42. And that's that, you serve as my case example of when people call me crazy when I say such and such team, I'm projecting to upset such and such team. And they're like, oh, that's never going to happen.
Did you project Clemson? Pitt to upset Clemson that year?
No, I did not. I did predict. Well, I didn't go game by game back then, so I just predicted season records. So I wasn't going game by game. the next season I did, and I did predict you to beat Miami when that was Kenny Pickett's breakout game, his first big start against Miami at Heinz Field when they were 10-0.
Yeah, and it's not like we beat them by 3 or 7. We beat them by double digits.
Yeah, and as you well know, I've got a lot of Miami people watching me, and I got crucified for months because I picked that back in August. So they thought that could never happen.
Well, that's who we consider Syracuse more of a rival than Miami. But since we don't play West Virginia anymore, and I can't wait till we do in 2022, we don't like Miami, and we sure as hell don't like Syracuse. We probably hate Syracuse even more than Miami. But if there's one thorn in our side, it's the Hurricanes. We beat them, once every 7 years?
Yeah.
And we just want the same respect. That's all we want. I mean, if North Carolina, and I know you said this is just early predictions on how things or how people think things are going to be. If North Carolina can go 7-6 and still be ranked, we should be able to go 8-5. If you're looking at it that way, we should be able to get ranked. However, if you're looking at it from a more logical standpoint, not as a fan and more as a how would you say it, analyst, then maybe not. But as a fan, I feel we do.
I get
I'm
it.
not an analyst, so I don't know how that crap works.
Well, I think that there are basically two approaches to people making rankings, preseason rankings, I should say. You've got your people that just look at, okay, this is how good the teams were last year, at the end of last year. Here are the additions and subtractions, the recruiting classes versus the players lost to the NFL and lost to graduation. And that's basically how I do it. I've not released the top 25. Maybe I will. But anyway, that's how I look at it. Now, a lot of people, and I don't think this is fair, they look at the schedule, and they're basically trying to make a prediction. And I don't rank the teams based on their schedule, because I may think a team is the 10th best team in the country, but their schedule's brutal. So other people would say, well, I'm going to drop them to 20th because their schedule is so tough, they're not going to play up to that 10th ranking. Well, I just say these are the 25 best teams in the country, in my estimation, regardless of what their schedule looks like.
Do you think Carolina deserves the ranking that they got?
I think that they have one of the top 5 to 6 quarterbacks in the country, and he was just a freshman last year.
He's a monster.
And they've got both their running backs back. They've got their 3 wide receivers. Now, they did have a couple people opt out. Now, I do need to catch up with those names. But they only lost their all-ACC center, but the other 4 offensive linemen are coming back. They have a lot of talent back, and they had a tremendous recruiting class.
Mac Brown surely helped with that.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's Mac Brown.
Absolutely. Their recruiting class, let's see here, was, a top 15 recruiting class. Yeah, they had the 13th rated recruiting class in the country, number 2 in the ACC to Clemson. Now, that's not going to have a huge impact on this season. Pardon me?
I think Pitt is ranked 30th in the country and 8th in the ACC.
No, that's not bad.
If I'm not mistaken. Because we have, for 2021, we have 7 4-star recruits and 3 5.
Yeah, that's a good class.
We just picked up I don't know if he's going to fit in because of who we already have, because we only have 1 senior on the team and we don't have any junior quarterbacks. We just gave a scholarship to a kid down in Texas, 6'6", 210-pound quarterback. Big kid, runs pretty fast. I just don't know why we even brought him in the first place. And then we got Malik Newton, running back out of Hampton, Virginia, 6'2", 230 pounds. I see Jerome Bettis right there.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So we're stacked. We're stacked. If Pitt were to go undefeated, and even I know that's not happening, but if Pitt were to go undefeated, would you give them the same amount of respect as you do Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan?
Well,
any
absolutely.
Of those Big Ten teams?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
yeah, and that's all we want. That's all we want then.
The reason I asked you how long you've been watching me, this is how I approach rankings, and I release my rankings every Sunday. Once there's one game played, then I only go on track record. I don't go on what my personal thought is in regards to how good these teams are. So my case example is Maryland. We both know how bad Maryland's generally been in the last 5 or 6 years. But for 2 consecutive years in 2017 and 18, Maryland beat Texas in week 1. So I ranked Maryland in the top 10. I ranked Maryland in the top 10 after one game. And people, of course, you're an idiot, you're crazy, they're not the 8th best team in the country. And I said, clearly, I'm not saying they're the 8th best team in the country, but all we have, the only data point we have is one game for everyone. And I am saying that they notched the 8th best win in the country for week 1. Now, when they prove not to be any good, they'll drop out of the rankings. But until they do, this is all we have to go on. And I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to be a biased person just to say, Maryland sucks. They got lucky. They beat Texas. I'm not going to rank them. No, they posted one of the best wins in the country. So they're going to have to play their way out of it. That's how I approach it.
I, to be honest, don't actually get a lot of your notifications for your channel. And I have the bell icon fully highlighted and everything. It's YouTube. YouTube will only send you 3 notifications per day for anything.
Oh, I got you.
Anything you're subscribed to.
Yeah.
So I miss a lot of your content, and I'm subscribed to so many sports analysts on YouTube and everything. It's hard to keep up with you guys on who's doing what.
Sure.
And honestly, I'm not going to lie. If you guys aren't talking about Pitt, I don't give a damn.
Well,
because that's just who I love. If you're talking about who Pitt is playing, I might be interested. That's only if they're playing them that week. But other than that, I usually don't watch anything unless you're talking about my favorite FBS team, North Dakota State, and which I honestly don't see you really talk about them that much. And that's one FBS team you should always talk about.
Be talking about who?
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State. That's well, yeah. When you said FBS, FCS team, yes. I know it. Well, I can only get to so many teams. I'm one guy. I can only get to so many teams. So it's unfortunate that you weren't with us years ago, because for many years, well, when I say many years, I've only been on here for so many years. But back before you started watching, I used to have an SB Nation guy from Pitt on all the time, like previewing all the games. So I talked a lot of Pitt football. But when he dropped off the map, I just haven't talked a lot of Pitt football. Yeah, and I kind of got the understanding when you told me you don't talk about Pitt a lot on your channel, and it kind of offended me a little bit whenever you said it's because you just don't get the views about Pitt. And then I understood it from a business standpoint, because you are running your channel like you're running a business. You got to pre-plan, and then pre-plan, and then actually pre-plan for the pre-plan. Absolutely. I mean, I get it. And just like the last video, I'm pretty sure you saw my comments on your video that you just posted recently about Pitt. Sure. Well, so
there's
this
not
is
a lot of views on that video.
well. This is what I have to weigh as well. So I serve the people that watch me and serve those teams that watch me, but at the same time, I don't want to ignore, just out of being a credible source for college football, I still want to cover what needs to be covered, even if people aren't going to watch it. You know, if Pitt's playing in the ACC championship game, I'm going to cover it. I'm going to talk about it. And then also I got to consider that, well, if I never talk about Pitt, then the Pitt fans will never find me because I'll never talk about them. So I try to balance that out as well, hoping that fan bases will eventually come in. Pardon me?
Do you have a lot of Pitt fans on your channel, or is there not that many?
Well, I don't think there are, because the videos don't do well.
Yeah, because honestly, this is the first live stream that I've been a part of a couple of them, but I've ever heard anybody other than me talk about Pitt.
Yeah. People need to understand
have to get going to work.
People need to understand I just love college football, and I will cover anyone, but I'm only one guy, so I can only get to so many teams. But, you know, right now we do an Ohio State, Florida State, Miami live streams each week, but I've got no affinity for just doing those three teams. I'll do a live stream on anybody if people will watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't have to do it just to please or appease me, because you have much bigger fan base other than us Pitt fans. But I would like to see, other than a prediction video, a live stream talking about Pitt. Maybe not just Pitt themselves, because even that would be boring to me.
Well,
the ACC more in general, because I feel the more out of whack it is, the better it is to watch.
Well, I agree, and it's ironic that you say that, because I'm doing a live stream with an ACC season preview Tuesday night at 7:30.
Tuesday night, 7:30.
ACC preview.
I will be there. But I unfortunately have to get going to work because, you know, how else am I going to pay bills?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the call.
But thank you very much for talking to me. You have yourself a good day or night.
You too. Appreciate it. Yeah, some Pitt football. Absolutely. Kenny Pickett. I would have said hi to him. Watched a lot of Kenny Pickett play football. Definitely. And look at Pitt. If they lost 2 games this year, and most likely those 2 would be Clemson and Notre Dame if chalk holds, but as college football is, if Pitt went 9-2, I would bet that they would win one of those games and lose to somebody else. They're going to be ranked in the top 10 in the nation, at least according to me. If they would go 9-2 against that schedule and play respectable games against Clemson and Notre Dame, not lose 51-0. Sure. All right. Maybe we need to clean this up here. What do you say? I'm not really accomplishing what I had set out to do. That's nobody's fault here. Mark, don't you guys ever sleep? It's 11:13 a.m. over here, so it's 5:13 a.m. over there. Yes, I've yet to get to sleep, Martin. But thanks so much for joining us. Let me give everyone a programming update. So I'm going to go live sometime tomorrow. Maybe it's going to be as soon as I get up. We're going to go live again. But most likely it's going to be tomorrow night around 10 o'clock Eastern time. But I got to figure out what the family's up to. So hang out for that. Sometime on Sunday, we're going to go live. Also, I'm in the midst of releasing ACC prediction videos. If you didn't guess from my last call, ACC prediction videos. So I've got more to do there. We'll get to the Big 12, if I can possibly get to the Big 12 by Saturday. On Tuesday is going to be packed because at 2 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to do a Miami show live, preview the UAB game that's coming up on Thursday night. So this is Tuesday at 2 o'clock Eastern time, Miami live. And then at 3:15, you don't get to see this until later. But every Tuesday at 3:15, I do a Record with Michigan podcast. And then that gets posted at Michigan Podcast, and then I post it later in the week here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And then also on Tuesday night, we're going to do our Florida State show at 6 o'clock. Then, as I just mentioned to him, at 7:30, an ACC preview live. And then I'm going to be on Noel Game Day's Florida State preview show, wherever that's going to be broadcast, at 9:30 that night. So in terms of what's going on here Tuesday, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, Miami Live. And then at 6 o'clock, Florida State Live. And then at 7:30, our ACC preview live. And then we, of course, will continue to schedule for the rest of the week. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, I am going to run through the rest of the live chat comments to see if there's anything I need to respond to. Otherwise, you guys have an amazing, yeah, I'm a night owl. Ever the diplomat. All right. I think we've done enough damage. Good to see everyone. Again, look for your notifications. If you're not subscribed, please do. Turn on the bell for the notifications, and we will see everyone here sometime on Sunday. I will announce the time very soon. Catch a few winks, wake up, see what's going on, send that notification. We'll see you on Sunday.